All right, everybody, welcome back to the best training channel on YouTube. I don't know if I can say that since I haven't really been continuously posting my training right now. Life has been pretty busy and getting up videos isn't my main priority at the moment, but still have been training, working on developing the new program that I'm doing, which is focusing on like the vertical jump. If you guys have followed me at all on Instagram, I've been posting a little bit of dunk videos. That's something I want to get better at doing, and like specifically dunking. And the program that I'm running, which is actually starting today, day one, is going to be solely focused on developing that ability to dunk, developing the vertical jump. I'm still going to be doing like my method of it, so we're still going to be sprinting, lifting weights, doing Olympic lifts, that kind of stuff, but it's going to look drastically different than what it has in the previous videos. So I've written out probably 3 to 4 different outlines on how I think this training phase is going to go. One thing I know for sure is that this is going to be a long focus, like 6 months focusing on developing the vertical jump. And the reason for that is I want to gain about 6 inches on the vertical jump. And that's not going to be a very easy thing to do. I'm expecting like that first 2 to 3 inches will probably develop quickly because we are switching the focus from doing heavy work, doing a lot more strength biased movements, moving into some more explosive, a lot more volume on the plyometrics, and we're going to be doing some compounding things like where we're doing lifts and jumps within a single set. So I think just that change in stimulus is going to elicit a quick result for that first 2 inches, for that first 3 inches. And then once that happens, that next inch number 4, inch number 5, inch number 6 is going to take some time to develop. I'm expecting that to happen, like gain an inch over the course of anywhere between 6 to 8 weeks at a time. And as we're continuously pushing towards gaining those last few inches on the vertical jump, we've got to just maintain the stimulus, kind of increase it, make some changes. So I at least have a decent idea on how this first 6 weeks is going to go. There are going to be a lot of changes along the way as we start to get more specific in trying to gain each inch on that vertical jump. So it's been a process, to say the least. It's been fun, and today is going to be day one. So the one thing I'm doing today that I didn't really expect to do is I am going to be doing a sprint session and a lifting session today, because yesterday, which would have been Monday, the track was closed, and that would have been my day one sprint session. So I'm doing my sprint session this morning. I'm going to take a couple hour break, and then I'm going to get ready for my weight room session this afternoon. So right now what I'm doing is showing you guys a little bit about warm up for what I do prior to my sprints. This band work is just kind of like loosen up the hamstrings, open up the hips a little bit, just get things feeling a little bit looser. I get a lot of questions about my warm-ups, and I know I don't have a lot of videos showing specific things for the programs that I do. So I wanted to do something today that kind of shows you, 1, what the warm-up is, and then 2, the simplicity of what it is. It's not, it doesn't need to be very complex when it comes to warming up for anything that you're doing in a single training session. So today I decided, why not just kind of film the entirety and give you guys an insight on how easy a warm-up really needs to be, and hopefully let you guys see that you don't need to do very complex things to get ready to train, especially like with sprints. People seem to be absolutely clueless when it comes to a sprint warm-up. And like, you could get an extremely good warm-up by just starting to do, you know, 5 hard 5-meter sprints, and then 5 hard 10-meter sprints, and then doing some different like easy hops and skips and bounds, and like just start gradually building up to higher intensities, and you'll be good to go for your sprinting. So that's going to be the plan for today's first part of the video. So with the band stuff, open up the hips a little bit, stretch the hamstrings out a little bit, just kind of see if things are feeling tight or if they're already feeling loose. Now I'm just focusing a little bit more on that lower limb. So do some calf work. These rolls with the ankle, just kind of loosen everything up. Nothing too complex on this. And then we just start doing drills. All right, so hopefully you guys can see me all the way down here. But first thing I like to do after I go through my band work is to just do some variations of some skipping with some arm swings. The skips are going to act as a little bit extra warm-up for that lower leg. You could also classify these as like very, very low intensity, extensive plyometrics. Add the arm swings in to just kind of loosen up the shoulders, loosen up the upper body a little bit. So I normally will go forward skips, backward skips, lateral skips. I'll do one set of about 20 meters each on these. All right, so after the skips, what I like to do is just kind of open up the hip a little bit more, focusing a little bit on the hamstring. So I'm going to do some straight leg kicks, I'm going to do some knee hugs, and then I'm going to do some hamstring sweeps. So with the straight leg kick, all I'm really trying to do is just reach my hand over top of my head, bring my foot up towards my hand with a somewhat of a straight leg, go into the next rep. And I usually do these for somewhere around 15 meters, 10 meters on this. Doesn't need to be a lot, but kick the leg up. Should feel it in the hamstring. Usually I feel this pretty high in the end of the hamstring, up towards the hip. Second thing I'll do is a knee hug. And then last thing that I like to do is just kind of a hamstring sweep. So with the hamstring sweep, you stick one heel out on the ground in front of you, try to keep that leg relatively straight, arms come from behind the hips, you just sweep forward, try to touch the ground, and then you'll move on to the next sweep with the next leg. And after the band work, the skips, doing a couple of that, I generally feel loose enough to start doing some drills. And the drills that I've been doing lately, I've just been picking about 3 to 4 different drills, working on nothing really specific on it other than just kind of opening things up, getting into more sprint-like positions. And then I've also been adding in some takeoffs in between those to try to build an intensity before I get into some of my build-ups prior to the speed work that I'm going to be doing for that day. So the first sprint drill I'm going to do is going to be an A skip. I've been doing these for about 15 to 20 meters, 1 set, 2 sets sometimes if it's feeling a little off, but things are feeling pretty good today. So probably end up doing just one set on these. And then, like I said, I've been adding in these little bursts in between each of these drills to try to build up a little bit of intensity. I usually do a couple to start off with like a 3-step start at about like 70 to 80%. I'll do another drill. I'll do 3 to 4 steps a little bit harder. Do another drill, 3 to 4 steps a little bit harder. So we'll start at about 70-ish%, build up towards 80, 90% takeoffs. Then we'll do some like full 10-meter starts, do a couple build-ups, and then move into the speed work for today. So 3 easy steps, focusing on acceleration type work, 70% effort. I'm gonna do what's called a C skip. So you start off with an A skip, same leg, open it up out to the side, bring it back down, and then you go back to, you can have your choice of doing an A skip or doing a B skip. So forward, lateral, forward. Again, about 20 meters on this. Then we're going to do another 3-step, about 75, 80-ish% on this. And now we get into a little bit of our longer warm-up drills. So we're going to extend this to about 30 meters or so. The camera's right about 30 meters from this start mark. So we'll just go past the camera as we do this. But I like to start off with what I call like short, choppy, straight leg bounds. So we're not worried about getting that leg all the way out in front of us right now. We're just working on the speed and the choppiness, trying to feel like we're getting a little bit more reactive off of the ground, bouncing with that straight leg motion. So short, choppy one, 30-ish meters on this. And now is when we extend those kind of acceleration bursts to a 5-step. Should be around 80% on this 5-step, hopefully. Everything's feeling good so far. Open up that straight leg bound a little bit. Try to get that front leg out in front a little bit more. And then again, 5-step burst here. And then my last drill that I'm gonna do is going to be a straight leg bound alternating cycle. So we're gonna do that same straight leg bound, but every 3rd step, rather than continuing to keep the leg straight, we're going to cycle that back leg and then strike the ground, which should mimic more of a max velocity type mechanic. But we'll do that again for about 30. And now we're gonna throw on the spikes and we're just gonna start doing some short accelerations, about 90%. Start extending those out to longer distances until we reach close to what I feel like is going to be my first sprint distance for the day. So I'm still going to be doing some block work. That's going to be the plan today. Probably going to be at about 95% effort on all my reps, depending on how everything feels. So I want to do probably 2 40s, 2 50s, and then a 60. And the 40s and 50s are gonna definitely be done at 90% effort. And depending on how that 50 feels, I might go all out on that 60. And I do have the timing eyes today, so maybe get a number on that 60, or I might keep it at 95 just because body is feeling a little bit fatigued, partially due to the reason that I've only been training probably about 3 days a week for the last couple weeks. I went on a trip with my daughter. It was kind of like the end of the summer before she started school again. We took a trip, had some fun together, came back, had a few things I needed to take care of in terms of planning some travel, situating some different schedules with other people, because I am going to be heading back to the States at the end of September. So I needed to make sure I got all that stuff kind of ironed out. I also had an end of the summer get together with some friends. We went out, had some fun. So the training for the last couple weeks has been not as intense, and it hasn't been a huge priority to like be specific on anything. I made sure I got my speed work in, went to the gym, did a little bit of light lifting, did some jumping around. Was mainly using the last couple weeks as kind of a transition period before I get into my next training phase. So when I do that, I'll probably only do this 1 to 2 times a year, where I'll drastically decrease the training volume. I'll maintain some of the intensity, but I kind of just go out and live life like a normal person and have some fun. I had some drinks, ate some good food, ate a lot of good food actually. Wasn't sticking to any sort of plan when it came to the food. So I use that to kind of just like, it's a good mental break. It's a good reset. If you're always so structured and scheduled with everything, sometimes it can get a little monotonous. You start to get bored. Having a period of time, whether it's you taking a vacation with the family, or maybe you're not going on vacation, just take like a week, 10 days, 2 weeks off, whatever you need. Still train, still do a little bit, but don't focus so much on the specifics of everything. Just have some more fun, live your life, get some experiences in. That's a good balance towards everything. So that's what's been going on for the last couple weeks with me. So we got the spikes on now. I'm gonna start off doing some Excel work, not using blocks, just going off of a 3-point stance. We'll do some probably 10-meter starts at 90%, do some 10s at 95, go to 15, 20, because my first rep is gonna be out of the blocks at 40 meters. After we do some good 3-point stance starts and everything's feeling good, I'll bring the blocks out, do a couple bursts out of the blocks, do a couple build-ups, and then we'll start knocking off the first rep, which will be at a 40-meter distance from the blocks. I don't have a cone set out for 10 meters, but that's gonna be the distance that I'm kind of going. 10 meters for me is about 6.5 hard steps. So really all I'm gonna do is just count my steps as I get out of this and just do a couple hard repetitions here. So like I said, about 90% on this first one. I think I said I'm gonna do a 3-point stance, but I'm gonna stick with 4. Second one felt much better. Felt like I had a little pop there. So I had plans of kind of extending that out to about 15 meters, but I'm just gonna go from the blocks now. Do a couple 90, 95% excels out of the blocks at 20, and then we'll start knocking out some 40s for today's workout. All right, this is gonna be my first rep for today's session. 40 meters out the blocks. I'm gonna maintain this at about a 95% effort here. All right, 40 meters are done. Now we've got 2 50s to do. All right, for shits and gigs, we're timing the 60. All right, so even though I'm not at 100% today, I still feel decent and think I can bust off a respectable 60-meter dash. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna do this at 95+% effort. I wanna stay relaxed. I wanna make this feel smooth and fast. I have a tendency when I try to run hard to get kind of bunched up and not really open up my stride and run the way that I should. So this is gonna be a 95 plus, not a balls out, but potentially it could be there if I'm able to maintain that ability to stay relaxed as I'm sprinting. But this is definitely going to be a very, very hard effort. I'm not trying to say that this time is because I'm not going hard. I'm definitely gonna go hard. So we'll see what this time is about to be. .702 on that, as you guys saw. Like I said, 95+% effort. I didn't have the ability to go really much harder than that. I think for what today was, I would take a 702 as a decent time. I ran a 60 probably 4 weeks ago, kind of like when I was peaking for a lot of my sprint work. And I did this same type of setup where I started with 40s, did some 50s, but I only did 140, 150, and then I did 2 60s. And the first one I timed, it was a 95% effort, and it was a 702, maybe a 701, and it felt extremely easy. So I decided, you know what, besides doing 95% on the last one, I'm just gonna go all out. And that day I was feeling incredibly well, and I ran a 672 on that second one. So normally, like if I were to have been training specifically trying to peak for a sprint or do something along those lines, and I would have run a 702 today, I'd be extremely frustrated with something like that, because there shouldn't be that big of a drop off in terms of like a 672 to a 702, like 3/10 when you're trying to peak for something means you did something incredibly wrong. But given the last couple weeks, we're kind of like end of the summer, did some vacation stuff, did some hanging out with some friends, went to the bar. A 702, I'm gonna take that. That's not a terrible number to have for today. So the 60 meter is going to be something that's going to stay in my program, even while I'm doing all of the training specifically for the vertical jump. I think sprinting is a missing key in a lot of vertical jump programs. I haven't seen a ton of them out on the internet, but a lot of them focus heavily on the plyometric side, heavily on the weight room work, but I don't see a lot of them including high intensity sprint work that is specific for developing like max velocity and acceleration. Some of them have sprint work in there that's like just really short accelerations on a basketball court or something like that, which is fine. But I think building up the ability to sprint, your rate of force development, your ability to produce power, your ability to handle high velocities and high forces at the same time, which sprinting is really the only thing that does that. If you could get to the point where you're running, 18, 19, 20 plus miles an hour, each step you take on the track, you're gonna be experiencing 4 to 5 times your own body weight. And then the guys that are really elite that can hit like mid 20 mile an hour, so like let's say 23 to 25 miles an hour, those guys are probably somewhere around 6 to 7 times body weight every single step that they're taking. There's nothing else that's going to be able to elicit that type of body forces, plus the velocity and plus the exposures that you're going to get. Like if you're running a 100 meter sprint or a 60 meter sprint, and each one of those steps past, let's say 40 meters, is going to be at that 5 times body weight. Between 40 and 60 meters, for most people, that's going to be 8, 10, 12 steps. That means that's 8, 10, 12 exposures where every single time your foot hits the ground, that's 5x body weight, 5x body weight, 5x body weight. And those steps are happening at an incredibly high rate, which means it's like left, right, left, right, left, right, left, right. So it's 5 times body weight. There's nothing else in terms of training that'll produce a stimulus like that. You're not doing a single weight room lift that you're doing 5x body weight. So that's the reason why I like to have sprinting in my program, and that's why it's going to stay while we're developing this vertical jump. Plan now is, what time is it? So it's about 11:30. I'm probably gonna take a good 2 hours off here, go get some food, relax, go to the gym about 1:30, and today we're gonna do what today was normally scheduled going to be, which is going to be a weight room session. So a couple hours here, recharge, eat a little bit of food, hydrate, and then we'll be in the gym. All right, so weight room work today. You guys are getting a bit of a double dip on today's training session. So we did the speed work this morning, and then moving on to the weight room work today. When developing kind of this outline on what I wanted to do specifically for like this first 4, maybe 5 weeks of building up the vertical jump, I referenced a lot of different things from coaches like Daniel Bove, from Yuri Verkhoshansky, from some of my friends and connections I have at various Division I universities throughout the US, and also Matt McKinnis-Watson with his Plus Plyos program. I've taken bits and pieces from different things and tried to put them together in a way that's going to allow me to train and develop things specifically for the vertical jump, but also train in a way that I haven't trained in before to try to create new stimulus and create new adaptations. So if you followed my channel at all, followed me on Instagram, and over the courses of however many years, my style of training in terms of how I've programmed a single session has always been very similar, yet different based on what I'm specifically focusing on, whether that be strength, whether that be power development, whether that be speed, but the format of each of those days has generally stayed the same. I have my template that I like to work off of, and I usually build that out and just make minor adjustments to that template, so I have a focus on one specific thing with like a part B and a part C as secondary focuses throughout my training cycles. This training phase, I'm going to be doing a lot of things that I haven't done previously, like I said, to try to create new stimulus and get a new adaptation. So there's gonna be a lot of complexing sets with different things, going from like a lift to a jump, doing different variations of jump work. I'm still gonna be doing some variations of Olympic lifts in my programs, but it's all gonna look a little bit different, but still have my style on what I like to do within that program. With that being said, I'm going to start off with my jumps today. And then I think I've posted this variation in a previous video already. What I'm trying to do today is just have some sort of external object that I'm going to be jumping over. I don't want to be doing jumps onto a box for the reason that when I'm out on a basketball court, I'm not going to be landing on a box when I'm trying to jump. The first thing I noticed probably 2-3 weeks ago when I went to the court the first time, I spent about 30 minutes just jumping around trying to do some dunks, doing different things like that. I noticed how sore my legs were the day after from coming down from each of those jumps. So I would jump up in the air, dunk the ball, land onto the ground. So those ground forces of just the landing portion of the jump is something that I'm also going to be focusing on as I'm doing my jump training in the gym. So that's what today's gonna be. We're not gonna be jumping onto the box. We're using this box as kind of an external cue to be jumping over the box and then landing onto the ground on the opposite side. I am calling this kind of an approach jump. I've programmed these many times before in some of my programs, whether it was like the unit phase 1 and 2, I think they're in unit phase 2.0 as well. Approach jump just means you're not going from a static position, you're actually approaching whatever object you're gonna be jumping on or over prior to that jump. So in true fashion, the way that I like to warm up is just do the thing that I'm gonna do at a lesser intensity. So what I'm gonna do here is just kind of, and then start adding some boxes and jumping over that. I should also mention, one of the guys who I follow on Instagram is Bobby White. He's a basketball trainer. He is known for posting good drills. And one of the things that he does is he has like this little squatty start to his approach jump. So he'll do this with his basketball players. They'll be on the court, loading up that front leg, being in a squat position, allowing that front shin angle to kind of drop as they push through. That's how I'm gonna do my approach jump today. So I stole this from one of his Instagram posts. They were doing it on a basketball court with a basketball where they would start real low, take off, a couple dribbles, do a layup, do a dunk, whatever it might be. I thought that was a cool way to kind of work on that approach into it. Since I'm a 2-footed jumper, I generally like to get fairly low in my loading position and explode through. I'm more of a force production type guy, so longer time spent on the ground, lower joint angles before I explode up through. So that little squat start to the jump, I think is gonna work well for me. Plus it allows me to kind of focus on pushing through that penultimate, loading up off of both feet and exploding over the box. So from what I saw on Instagram, you load up that front leg, back leg's not really gonna have too much of weight on it. You're gonna focus on dropping that shin angle, get a big long step, try to create some momentum, and then just explode through. There we go. I've done 4 reps. I think what I'm gonna do is 8 total reps because I did a couple warm-up jumps, so that'll keep me at that 10 rep range that I wanna be at. But what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna switch the approach to my right foot now, just to kind of work on that plant and pop off of the opposite loading. I don't know if this is true, I'd have to get force plates and measure this out, but when I jump, I am a 2-footed jumper, and I would say 90% of the time, I push through my left leg, initiate the plant with my right leg, and then spring off of my left leg again. When I was doing track and field, I was a long jumper. I did triple jump as well. Specifically like long jump or high jump, I would always plant off of my left foot as I was gonna do that jump. I feel better as a left-footed jumper if I'm going to go off of one leg. I've noticed when I do my 2-footed jumps that my right leg feels like it kind of is the transition from horizontal to vertical. And then my left leg is what comes in and really applies that vertical force and gets me up off of the ground. I want to make sure that I'm not being too biased to one type of loading pattern. So I'm going to be loading up the opposite for the next 4 reps and going through planting on my left and trying to explode from that opposite loading pattern there. And sorry if you guys are hearing a bunch of noise outside right now. There's a garbage truck picking up the trash, but that's kind of the plan that I have right now. So we'll load up the same way, get that back foot just kind of nice and light on the ground, and then up and over. Maybe if there's some sports scientist guys who watch these videos, y'all could drop a comment down below and tell me if what I'm feeling with that plant load has any kind of validity to it, or if it's just in my head and that's just how it feels. I feel like I need a little bit more space. All right, for the second portion of today's training, the focus of today's weight room session is jumps and isometrics. So the isometrics that I'm going to be doing are going to be a yielding isometric. I'm not extremely versed in the world of isos. I've done them periodically. I haven't really dove deep into the world of isometrics. I understand kind of what they're supposed to be doing. From my kind of very shallow understanding of isometrics, yielding isometrics are for tendon health. And if I'm going to be doing an extreme amount of jumping and trying to build the vertical jump, I want to make sure that I'm kind of being preemptive on making sure that the knees stay healthy. So because I'm gonna be doing so much jumping, I'm gonna get out in front of whatever kind of development may happen within the knee, and I'm gonna be doing a lot more isometric work. So the kind of sweet spot that I've found is about 3 sets of 30 seconds on each side. More than 30 seconds on a yielding isometric doesn't really have an extreme added benefit other than 30 seconds. The studies that I've seen, I think it was Alex Natera, who is really big in the isometric world. He has shown that like that 30 to 45 second range is kind of that sweet spot. So 30 seconds on each side is what I'm going to be doing for this split squat variation. I've done these previously in my unit 2.0, and I was loading the bar between the leg. I'm just choosing to use a different pattern of loading. I wanted the barbell on my back, and rather than holding the barbell on my back, I figured a safety squat bar would be a much better and much more comfortable way to hold this position for 30 seconds. So what I'm going to be doing is 30 seconds on each side, and then I'm going to take a little deep tier plyometric from Matt McInnes-Watson, and I'm going to do a deep lunge, just easy kind of hopping plyometric here. Ten reps on one side. 10 reps on the other, and probably do 3 sets of that. And for the sake of the duration of this video, I'm only gonna film 1 set of that. So the next thing you're gonna see is the next variation on iso plyo kind of combo sets that I'm gonna be doing. All right, last thing I'm doing for today, another iso plyo complex. Let me start my clock so I can do my 30 seconds. But we're gonna be doing a calf isometric. So I'm gonna be loading it up, both legs at the same time. I'm gonna be having my heels floating, and I'm going to just slightly extend the ankles, hold this for 30 seconds, and then I'm gonna partner this up with a pogo hop, and it's gonna be more of an intensive plyometric, where the deep tier, when I was in that split position, I would say is more of an extensive, because you're not necessarily going for maximum effort on each of those jumps. But we're gonna do this with a slightly extended position. Obviously, both legs at the same time, and the calves, it's a more loadable position. So the barbell is going to be heavier on this. And then once we finish our 30 seconds, which I think that was about 30 seconds, I'm gonna move over to the box, aiming for maximum height, minimum ground contact on each of these pogo hops, somewhere between 10 to 12 reps on this. So we'll drop off the box to initiate the ground contact, and then we'll just do it for, like I said, 10 to 12, just counting our head as we go. Ten is good. So again, 3 sets on that. The rest in between each of these, once we finish the set, is gonna be about 2 to 3 minutes. The rest in between exercises is kind of arbitrary. So you can go straight from one into the other. If you are gonna rest, 15, 20, 30 seconds is probably like the maximum-ish range that you want to. But I think that's gonna be a solid session. And now that I've kind of completed it, I'm gonna do 2 more sets of this. I'm thinking I might keep this day a sprint and lift day, because this lift day, I want it to be a little bit lower on the intensity side, because I was doing so much more volume on the isos. So if I were to do some cleans and some squats and then do the isos at the end of the session, it's pretty fatiguing session to do. So I've moved some of my lifting that I'm gonna do to later on in the week. So I think I might keep today as like a sprint iso day, because I could even do this entire session at the track. There's some heavy kettlebells there where I could load up the isos. I could do my split position. Obviously there's plenty of room to do the jumps. I can do my pogo hops. I could do all my sprints. So I think I might keep that as we get in through the rest of this week. I'll see how the end of the week goes and make the decision on it, whether I want to split those up into day 1, day 2, or try to combine that into all one day, because I don't think it would be extremely too fatiguing, because my sprints, I only did 5 total sprints. It's not a huge session, even though they're 40 to 60 meters on that. So I think this would be a good partner to that at the end of the session, is put the iso work after the sprints, give myself maybe 10, 15 minutes after I finish that last sprint before I move into this type of work. Overall, I think today was an incredible day. I've already announced on social media, just on Instagram, that like my goal for the rest of this year is I want to try to put 6 inches on my vertical jump. And how I'm really going to measure that is if I can go and put my elbow onto the rim. I went to the basketball court last week or the week before, and I did kind of a max effort jump to see where I could get my arm on the rim, and I got it to about mid forearm. So from mid forearm to elbow, that's about a 6-inch increase that I would need if I want to go and put my elbow on the rim. So that's how I'm going to measure it. I don't have a jump mat. I don't have a Vertec. I don't have any other way really to specifically measure my vertical. I think that would be an adequate way to measure the vert. So I'm just going to go off of, if at the end of the year I can put my elbow in the rim, we got the job done. That's going to be it for today. Appreciate you guys watching. Make sure to like and subscribe. See you guys in the next one as we continue to build the vertical jump.